Try it now.
Yeah, can you hear? Yeah, I can hear. Right. Okay, so we started yesterday the build-up to Kabbalah Torah. First thing was Klal Yisrael had to appreciate the extra chasadim which HaKadosh Baruch Hu had given to Klal Yisrael. And this was a message, the first message Moshe was told to give to them. Think about what's gone on since he'd been in Mitzrayim. And that's one of the reasons why in the first of the Aseret Dibros says, Anoich Hashem Elokecha Asher Tzisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Should really say, Anoich Hashem Elokecha Asher Barasi Shamayim V'aretz. I created heaven and earth. Right? I created heaven and earth. And it doesn't. It says Asher Tzisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim because Baruch Hu is speaking to us and say, look, I'm explaining why you have to accept the Torah. If I say Asher Barasi Shamayim V'aretz, it would be binding on everybody. But because Baruch was coming with a unique claim to the Jewish people's devotion, okay, to the Dveikus of Klal Yisrael uniquely to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's done more for us than any other people. So he tells them, think how I brought you out quickly, and he tells them, yes, it's going to be a new way of living, but it's only initially, that's only the first bit, which is probably why, in the grand scheme of things, they had to be in the midbar 40 years. They had to have a period in history where they can absorb the Torah, and then when you go into Israel, where it all has to be kept. They needed this training period. It's probably all part of the cheshbon of why the Meraglim had to happen. And then it says it'll get easier, and you'll become segula, which we explained yesterday, uniqueness, and the aim is you're going to become a kingdom of leaders and a holy people. Now Moshe Rabbeinu was actually a bit scared to go and tell this to the people directly. He wasn't sure how they'd react to it, so he actually only went to the Zakenim first. And there's an incredible observation of the Orach HaKodesh. So it says, Vayavo Moshe came, Vayikol Leziknei Ha'am, called the elders of the people, Vayosem Lifnei Eskol HaDavarim Ha'el Asher Tzivah Hashem, and he told them all these words which Hashem had told him to tell the people. He passed it on to the Zakenim. So you'd have thought the Zakenim, he figured the Zakenim would accept it straight away. Klal Yisrael overheard this discussion, and they all came forward. And amazingly, Shmuel, listen to this. It says, Vayadu kol ha'am yachdav, the entire people answered yachdav. What does yachdav mean? Together. What does together mean?
Unity.
In unity, same time. Very good, Ariel. This is incredible. So, Vayomru, and they said, Moshe, Kol asher dibra Hashem na'aseh. Everything Hashem said we will do. And Moshe took this back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Vayoshem Moshe dibra Omer Hashem. He went back up the mountain, and he said, he tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu how everybody wants to accept the Torah. Now, this is the big question. If they all said, Kol asher dibra Hashem na'aseh, why did Hashem later have to hold the mountain over them to accept it? They just said, Kol asher dibra Hashem na'aseh. And this question, already in the Medrash Tanchuma, time of the Amoraim, asked the Kasha. Says the Medrash Tanchuma, a very interesting thing. His answer is, they said, Kol asher dibra na'aseh on Torah Shebiksav, because it's easy to learn Chumash. But Torah Shebal Peh, Mishnayos and Gemara, that's much more difficult. They didn't say they weren't so keen on that. So Hashem had to hold the mountain over them for Torah Shebal Peh as well. That's it. That one answer. Tosfos asked the Kasha as well, and Tosfos says, yeah, they accepted it, but it was so scary when it came to the Har Sinai and the thunder and the lightning and the fire and the noise. It was so scary. Just in case they might back out at the last minute, Hashem held the mountain over them. No, hold by your commitment. Don't give up your commitment. A third answer that Orach HaKodesh says, and this is amazing. Now we know that Klal Yisrael re-accepted the Torah again after the Purim story. Okay, they re-accepted the Torah, but then Chazal say, at Har Sinai, it was accepted b'kfir, with coercion. They accepted the Torah, but it's under coercion. After the Purim story, it says, Hava kiblu b'me'ach hashvesh, they re-accepted it ba'ava. Klal Yisrael re-accepted the Torah ba'ava. Now we'll see how we know that. There's a proof of this. So what was it that the Purim story that they saw, which they had to be coerced initially? So says the Aruch HaKodesh, it's talking about listening to Chazal, accepting the authority of Chazal, that they can make rules midrabanan, and they do it for Klal Yisrael's good. That they weren't prepared to accept at Sinai up front. There they said, yeah, whatever Hashem says, no problem, we'll do it. Well, the Chazal tell us, well, we'll listen first, and then we'll decide whether we're capable or not. And the Purim story, where they saw Mordechai was right and they were wrong, they understood Chazal know what they're talking about. And that's what they were Mekabel V'Yavod, to listen to Chazal. And an amazing thing happened. We know, first base of English got destroyed. They didn't listen to the Nevi'im. The Nevi'im were the leaders, and they're coming morning and evening, tell them to behave. They didn't listen. Along come the Chazal, at the beginning of the Bais Sheni, the Anshe Knesset Agdola. They made all the Takonos D'Rabbanan. Every D'Rabbanan we have today was made then, including Tefillah B'Tzibur, davening and Tefillah B'Tzibur, Pas Akum, Shemen Akum, all the things we can't eat, keep us socially away from the Goyim, all the D'Rabbanans, and we keep them down today, Muksa on Shabbos, Takonos D'Rabbanan, down today we keep them quite incredibly. So how come today we keep all the D'Rabbanans, but then we didn't listen to the Nevi'im? That's the answer. Because till the Purim story, listening to the authority of Chazal was bikfir. They were forced into it. They didn't really want to listen. So they didn't. Eventually it comes out in the washing and they didn't listen. But where they were Mekabel Be'ava after the Purim story, they were re-Mekabel Me'ava. When you Mekabel Me'ava, you'll do whatever you're told to do. Chazal got Kamat, all the Takanos we got today, and Klal Yisrael keep it right down till today, 2,500 years later, because we were Mekabel Me'ava. What you Mekabel Me'ava never goes away. That's permanent, and that will last forever and ever. Now, Chazal say this ability to all answer together at the same time and say the same words was the same level as the Malachim. That's how the Malachim serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They get a job to do, they do it unquestioningly. And Klal Yisrael at that moment were elevated to the level of Malachim. Now, they haven't got the Torah yet. This is just standing around Har Sinai. Already, Klal Yisrael were raising their game. So this explains a little bit what we say in the Haggadah. In the Dayenu, what do we say? Ilu kervanu lifnei Har Sinai v'lo as the Dayenu. What does it mean? The whole purpose was to get the Torah, but no, there was already something. There was already a shift in Klal Yisrael's attitude and Klal Yisrael's demeanor towards ruchnius, towards keeping mitzvahs, or just standing around Har Sinai. Even though nothing had happened yet, that was already something. You see, already now they were speaking like malachim. There was an act that was never again repeated in history. Just being there around Har Sinai did something. Now, of course, the next stage is to get the Torah. That takes them even higher. But just by being there, virtue of being there, there was already a big elevation to which we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for. So now, the next big thing, which the Rambam says is one of the 13 Ikrei Emunah, is, there's two parts to it. Number one is to believe in the concept of Nevuah. You've got to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu communicates with man. And people who don't believe it, what it is to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu communicates with man, and that the greatest Navi of all time was Moshe Rabbeinu. So now part of the impact of Matan Torah was, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's not just that they accept the Torah, they've got to believe in your level of Nevuah, and from your level of Nevuah they'll accept the Torah, because you're going to give it to them over the 40 years, but then they're going to believe also in future Nevi'im. This is one of the Ikrei Emunah. To believe in the concept of Nevuah, to believe number two that Moshe Rabbeinu was the Av HaNevi'im, the greatest of all Nevi'im. According to the Rambam, because Baruch Hu only spoke directly with Moshe Rabbeinu, no other Navi. All of the Nevi'im came via a Malach. A Malach was sent with a message. Not all Rishonim agree with that, but Akabon the Rambam holds that's shit to the Rambam.
It says Pale Pei Dom.
Pale Pei, yeah. Nobody agrees to Moshe Rabbeinu. The question is other Nevi'im as well, yeah. And then to believe the Torah was given b'nevuah to Moshe Rabbeinu, and this Torah will never change. There will be no change to the Torah. So listen to these words. So Vayem Hashem Moshe. Hashem says to Moshe, Hinei anochi ba elecha ba'av ha'onon. Rather than speaking just to you, I'm going to come you're going to see a very, very thick cloud. So the people should hear when I speak to you. So they're not going to believe anymore you're a Navi. They're going to know you're a Navi. And the result will be V'gam b'cha ya'aminu la'olam. Not only you, V'gam is including the Nevi'im after you as well. They're going to believe. And Moshe actually then told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Klal Yisrael actually want to hear from you. They want to see their king. They want to see you and they want to hear you. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepted, and we'll see in a minute what they have to do for that. Now, ask Erechaim HaKadosh a wonderful kasha. But before we get to the Erechaim HaKadosh, there's a Meshech Chochmah. He said, why? If you like, pump up a booster in their emunah in where the Moshe Rabbeinu was truly a Navi. What does it say just before Yashir? Hashi, what did he say? Vayaminu b'Hashem of Moshe Avdoi. So they believed it. They believed in that. So why all of a sudden did it need this booster? Because Baruch said, I'm going to let them hear. They're going to be elevated to your level of nevuah for a few moments. So they're going to hear me talk to you. And the result will be they'll believe in you, that you're the Ava Navim, and all the other future Navim they'll believe as well. Why all of a sudden did they need this booster? This vaccine? Right? So, says the Meshech Chochmah, something very interesting, and the Erechaim HaKadosh is also a very, very interesting answer to this question. Meshech Chochmah says, their emunah in Moshe Rabbeinu's level was piping hot at Kriyas Yamsuf. It dropped a little bit when they saw Moshe didn't go out to fight Amalek. Yehoshua went out to fight Amalek. So they weren't sure, is Moshe the number one? Or maybe there's a contender for that spot with Yehoshua. So Kosh Baruch Hu therefore had to show them, no, Moshe Rabbeinu is unrivaled. There's no one like Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeah, Chazal comparing the moon to the sun was comparing Yehoshua to Moshe Rabbeinu. He was far, far, far above Yehoshua. So it needed this re-boost because of what happened in between the Yamsuf and Matan Torah was the Mechemes Amalek. That's how the Meshech Chochmah answers it. The Erechaim HaKadosh says like this. He says unbelievable words.
What does he say?
This is this, David. He says, V'nir Eloima, ki ha'emunah she'eminu Yisrael b'Moshe. It's true they had emunah in Moshe. Shehu Eved Hashem. They believed he was an Eved Hashem. V'Hashem chafetz bo HaKadosh Baruch Hu liked Moshe Rabbeinu very much. V'oiseh tfiloso u'ritzono. Whenever he davens, Hashem will answer his tefillas.
Wow.
That's what that's what they'd seen in Mitzrayim. Moshe went out and said, Hashem, bring the Makkah, stop the Makkah, bring the Makkah, stop the Makkah, split the sea, let us get through the sea, yeah? Because God was answering his tefillahs, that they saw.
I got a question then.
Yeah, one second, go on.
But when Moshe davened to go to Yisrael, he has to daven like 100 times.
515 times.
515 times.
Yeah. Had he davened one more time, what would have happened? Had he davened one more time, what would have happened? He would have got in. He would have got in.
Yeah, I know, but anyone...
told him stop davening.
Okay, but that's with anyone. If anyone davens, they'll get in. To fill a
could be, possibly.
No, but if you were to Hashem would really answer the fillers, he'll only have to ask 20 times, 10 times, 1 time. No?
Alright, well, we'll deal with that when we get to it.
It's a good question.
It's a good question. Best for us to wait.
Yeah, there's a reason why Hashem couldn't answer that.
I know, but...
the best thing
there's a reason
He
for
always
it.
hears us.
David, the reason why Hashem couldn't answer that tefillah, David, was because had Moshe Rabbeinu gone in and built the base of Mikdash, it couldn't be destroyed.
Hashem told them not to ask again.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Had he let him go in,
Why are you lying for? Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So he couldn't answer it. Another reason given is that La'asid Lavoi, Moshe Rabbeinu will bring all the guys who died in the Midbar.
Yeah.
At Ches HaMesim, Moshe Rabbeinu will bring them in to Eretz Yisrael. But only there's the fact there's a chus that Moshe Rabbeinu was buried in Chutz La'aretz. Had he been buried in Eretz Yisrael, it couldn't happen. So for the benefit of that Dor who Moshe did so much for, Hashem said to him, you've got one more job for this generation in the future. Therefore, he has to be. I can't let you go into Eretz Yisrael. I can't let you go in. All right, okay. So listen to this. They did not believe Hashem spoke to him. It's so mind-boggling to think this concept. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will speak to a human being, however great you are, was beyond them. And he brings here, he says very interesting. He says the Goyim, the non-Jewish philosophers, they believe in God and God exists and He answers prayers, but they don't believe that God communicates with man.
Yeah, because they're West. They move Buki.
Now, Ki hagam she'eminu Yisrael b'Moshe avdoi pirushu hu eved Hashem. They believe Moshe is an eved Hashem. V'yishma Hashem tefilosoi. Hashem will answer his tefillah v'yasachev so ritzoinoi. Avaloi mipnei zeh. That doesn't automatically mean ki yidaber Hashem. Hashem will speak to him. So Kosh Baruch says, now they're going to hear this. No more belief in thinking about this. They're going to hear me speaking to you, and we'll sort this out once and forever. He says, Ba'avol yishma medabri imach. And they'll see that God speaks to man and man can stay alive. And now they'll believe in you and also all future Nevi'im because they know it's true. That a man, God will speak to a man, communicate with a man, and he can stay alive afterwards and relate the message. Moshe Rabbeinu was peh while he was awake. Other Nevi'im, slightly different system, but the concept is there. So he said that's the what was needed now. According to the Aruch HaMachos, that was what was needed now. Now listen to these words of the Rambam. Unbelievable words. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu, lo ha'aminu bo Yisrael mipnei ha'oso she'asa. All the miracles which came about through Moshe Rabbeinu, Klal Yisrael were not convinced.
Now what?
The Jewish people don't believe anybody who comes along and says, God spoke to me last night.
Yeah, because it's God.
Right?
Is
The
that
Almighty
what
spoke to me. Jews don't believe that.
Right.
I'll prove you so. They just don't accept that when you come and say that. Listen to this. Shahamamin al pi oises. If you believe somebody because of an ois, he does a moifus, yesh biliboy tofi, deep down, you're not convinced. She'efsha shiyasa ois belot the kishiv. It could be black magic. Who said it's the Dvar Hashem?
Because back in those days as well, it was norm. It was the norm.
Well, anything Moshe Rabbeinu did in the Midbar, says the Rambam, there was a need to do it. When the Mon came down, and the bear starts geezing out water, and all the other things in the Midbar, splitting the sea and everything, it wasn't to prove Moshe Rabbeinu was a Navi. That wasn't the purpose. That to drown the Egyptians. They went down in the sea. So we needed bread. Moshe Rabbeinu brought down the Mon. His chus. Tzamainu, we were thirsty. Baka lehem esaven. Kofra boy adas Korach. Korach and his merry men didn't believe in the truth of Moshe Rabbeinu. So the earth swallowed them up. V'chein shakal ha'osos. Ubameh ha'eminu bo, says the Rambam. So where did Klal Yisrael reach their emunah Moshe Rabbeinu? B'ma'amad hasinai. On Hasin, listen to these words of the Rambam. Beautiful words. She'einenu ro'u v'lo zah. Our eyes saw. Nobody else's eyes saw it. We saw it. V'ozneinu shomu. Our ears heard it. V'lo acha ha'esh v'hakodesh v'lapidim. It wasn't because of the thunder, the lightning, and all the fire. V'hu nigash el harofel. He walked into the dark cloud. V'hakol medaber elav. We heard Hashem's voice speaking to him. V'anu shoymim. We heard Hashem's words. What were the words? Moshe, Moshe, lech emo lehem kach v'kach. Go and tell the Yidden this mitzvah. Go and tell the Yidden that mitzvah. V'cheinu omer, ponim diber Hashem, imochem. With you heard Hashem speaking to him face to face. V'nerma, lo yashav Hashem because it's a business. U'minayin shemam edasina levadoi, hi harayil in nevuosa she emes, v'she'en boi doifi. How do we know that this is the true proof and there's no misgivings about this proof? Shenerma, the passage we just quoted. Hine anochi bo ilecha ba'afa onam ba'avo yishmaha medabrim, so they should hear we speak to you. V'gam b'cha yaminu le'olam. Now they'll believe in you forever. Miklal shekaydim davazeh lo yaminu bo ne'emonu she'yemedes le'olam. They did believe him. The Rambam says that passage in the Shira Heshi, they did believe in Moshe Rabbeinu, but it wasn't rock solid. It wasn't rock solid to stand the test of time. Ele ne'emonu she'yesh achareha hirhu u'machshava. Now, so, says the Rambam, of Moshe Rabbeinu's Nevuah. Nimsu elu sheshulach, those who were sent to, heim ha'edim al nevuah she'emes. So he didn't have to do any more signs now to prove his Nevuah. He didn't sheheim v'hu edim b'dava kishnei edim, like two witnesses, shirah dava echad b'yachad, who saw something together. When two Edim come to Beis Din, Reuven and Shimon say, Levi killed Yehuda. Reuven is saying, by virtue of coming with Shimon, Shimon is telling the truth. And Shimon, by coming with him, is also saying to Beis Din, Reuben's telling the truth. And this is what we both saw. None of them has to bring a proof to Beis Din. The guy who's with me is genuine. The fact the two of you come together and testify is you're saying at the same time, this is what I saw, and I'm also saying my colleague saw it as well. Moshe had no need to do an ice to prove his nevuah was genuine. So he says, because when the proof is through isos, you're not sure whether he's really divine signs, or is he just good at it, or he's a magician, or something like that. He said, now, it's because of this, Moshe Rabbeinu was hesitant to go. That's why he said to Hashem, they won't believe me that you've really spoken to me. They'll just say I'm like one of the Egyptian magicians. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to him, no, these three signs, putting your hand in your pocket and throwing the snake in the water, he says, Einon ela ad sheyetzim min Mitzrayim. He said, that's just needed for them to believe in you enough to get them out of Mitzrayim. Once you come back to this mountain where he was speaking to him at the bush, at the snare, said they will stop thinking you're not genuine. I will give them here a sign. He said that they will not have any more doubts anymore when they see what happens here on Har Sinai. This is the proof. So therefore, says the Rambam, comes out from this. We now know Moshe Rabbeinu was the all-time greatest Navi. We know it. We don't believe it. We know it. So Nimsus Omer, Shekal Navi Shiyamad Acha Moshe Rabbeinu, Einan Amambinim Bo B'Pnei Ois Levadai. So now, all future Nevi'im have to come along with an ice to show that they were genuine. But we don't believe he's a Navi because of the ice. We believe him because Moshe Rabbeinu told us, if a Navi comes and gives an ice, believe him. We believe him because Moshe Rabbeinu told us to believe him, not because the ice convinces us. You never believe anybody because of an ice. Even Moshe Rabbeinu's ice is some sign or wonder he does. He says, why do we believe him? If a Navi comes along, a guy who you know is on a madrega of Nevuah, and he gives you an ice, so Moshe Rabbeinu was told to tell Klal Yisrael, Eilav Tishmon. If it all fits together, it makes sense. You should listen to him. But it's because the Torah says listen to him. Moshe Rabbeinu told us listen to him, not because the ice intrinsically itself. It's like the halacha of following two witnesses in Beis Din. They could be lying through their back teeth, but the Torah gives them a cheskas kashrus. Tell them, otherwise you assume they're telling the truth. So similarly, it's true, we don't know whether this is a genuine sign or it's black magic. But the Torah says somebody who's worthy, he's on the madrega of Nevuah, we know he's a very special person, and he does a sign in the name of Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu was told to tell us, listen to him. But it's not intrinsically the ice, it's because the Torah tells us to listen to him. So then the Rambam carries on. Therefore, if anyone tries to contradict Moshe Rabbeinu's Nevuah or claim to replace it, as other religions have tried to do over the years, that's why Klal Yisrael just laughed it off and rejected it. They didn't even give it the time of day because they knew it's not true. Simply, it's not true. You've got no proof to disprove what we know, what we saw on Har Sinai. So now, Heshi, where were you and I on Har Sinai? Where were we? Those 600,000 Yidden were the shorish of other neshamas. We are a nitzvah, a spark of those neshamas. So we were actually there. We're actually there. It's a very interesting thing, this. If you close your eyes, besides the Sedger pictures we drew when we were 3 or 5 in school of Har Sinai and everything, but if you actually think about Ma'amad Har Sinai, you can visualize it actually quite well. And the answer is because in the subconscious of your neshama, you were there. You were there. So it's a very easy thing to depict, a very easy thing to talk about it. Sorry? Well, it's very, very interesting. Some people, have a very, very strong, emotions when thinking about the Holocaust. Picture what went on in the Holocaust. And it's probably because they're Gilgulim of somebody who went through it. That's probably what it is. Right? So here as well, it's a very easy thing to conceptualize, to visualize, because deep down it's very easy to bring back or easier to bring out of your subconscious into your conscience a concept. Right? It doesn't need explaining. And we're told, it's one of the biggest mitzvahs in the Torah to do. The Rambam says to keep talking to your children about Ma'amad Hasina. Keep talking about it. Keep remembering it. He says, Yom Hashem Adzel Lifnei Hashem Elokecha B'chayrev. He says, when he wrote to the Yidden in Teiman, the famous letter of the Rambam to the Yidden there, and they had big problems with false Mashiachim and everything, it was gefährlich. So he said to them, talk to your kids about Ma'amad Hasina. He says, Gadleo al Kol Gedulah. Bring out how great it was, what Ma'amad Hasina was all about. Relive it, try and relive it as much as possible. But like you see, it's Mitzrayim. The power of Seder night is to relive it. That's what you're supposed to do, yeah? Some people have incredible props on Seder night. The guy told me he took cotton wool, it's very good on this one, and he dyed it black, and he put it in a box. He wanted to get them to feel what Choshech was like, and he got his little kids to put their hands in the box and feel the cotton wool, the thick black wool, to get a feeling of what like a big thick black cloud in Mitzrayim. Another guy, he told me very clever. What he did was he took two plastic clear glasses with a stem, and he wrapped silver wrapping around the stem. So his kids wouldn't cat while the silver wrapping, and he put a little bit of red food colouring in the stem of one of them. But you couldn't see it; it was at the bottom of it. So then on Seder night, he had these two cups here, and he took a jug of water. He says to his son, "Do you want to be a Yid or a Mitzri? Which one do you want to be?" So of course the kid takes the challenge. He says, "I want to be a Mitzri." And he poured the water in that one with a stem, and out came red water. And the kids were like, "Wow, to visualise it, there's some really good ones you can do." One year I got a whole pile of sticky frogs, and I threw them around the room. My poor sister-in-law, she thought they were real. She freaked. She almost knocked her wine over. It was quite funny. But you can do it. Anyway, this guy with Choshe. So to visualise these concepts is very easy because on the Shorish of our Neshamas were there. Chazal even say Geirim. The Neshamas of the Geirim were also there. Very interesting Chazal. So this is the next part of the Hachon of Matan Torah is Emunah in the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's a big factor in Kabbalah Satorah. Now, so then the people have to prepare 3 days. Moshe Rabbeinu had an extra day. They're told to seal off the mountain. You can't go on it. And while the Shekhinah's there, no one can go up. So after you hear the big sound of the shofar, then you can, afterwards, that's the sign the Shekhinah's gone, has left. You then can go back up the mountain. So on day 3, the Torah describes what it was like to be there. And I never thought of this till today. I saw the Aruch HaKodesh. I never realised this. It says, "Vayhi b'yom hashlishi." It was on the 3rd day, b'yos haboker, early in the morning. And this is the Makor that we stay up all night on Shavuos night. The Yidden was still in bed early in the morning. Yeah? Vayhi kolos uvrakim. There was thunder and lightning. The onon kovid alahar, very heavy cloud on the mountain. The koil shofar chazam oy, the sound of the shofar getting stronger and stronger. Boy, oh boy, was that an alarm clock. There was trembling. The noise was so scary. There was mamash tittering. They were too scared to go and stand on the mountain. Moshe Rabbeinu had to mamash schlepp them to the mountain. They stood under the mountain. So this is where Chazal say the Medrash. The Kof Aleim HaKagi is HaKadosh Baruch Hu held the mountain over them like a barrel. And he said the following words, and these words are very difficult to understand. He said, if you accept the Torah, well and good. And if not, Shom tehei kvuraschem. Over there will be your burial. Now, if you're holding something over here, like this, so it should be, if you don't accept the Torah, point, right here will be kvuraschem. What's Shom over there? The mountains are over them over here. And what does it mean he held the mountain over them? So the Meshech Chochmah says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed himself so openly with the Nisim they had seen. He says, their Bechira was taken away. Hashem was Mavatel their Bechira. They weren't able to say no anymore. It was not a possibility. It wasn't possible to say no. So it's as if someone puts a gun to your head, are you going to say no? Ariel, would you say no? Not at all. No choice. There's no choice in the matter. So he said that's what it means. Because I held the mountain over the head. It was so clear, the truth, that if you say no, that's the end of the existence of this world. It's got to exist on the Torah. That's what it means, held the mountain over the head. Okay, but let's take it literally. So what's the Shom? It's Poi over here. So I'd like to suggest something. I've asked a few Talmidei to comment this, and they liked it. They think it's a mystic of Pshat. What is a gigis? Of course, well, held the mountain over them like a gigis. Hashem wasn't punishing them or coercing them here. Nothing to do with it. Hashem was explaining what is a gigis.
I heard a thing that was like a hollow barrel. So.
Oh, but it's not a regular barrel. A gigis, have you ever driven past a brewery? There's one on the way to the airport on Princess Road, yeah? So you see how big those vats are. I think it's a vat it's called. I think. Yeah, they're enormous. Or what's it called? They're ginormous. So a gigis, if you put a gigis on top of a person, he can walk around. This place to walk is massive. But there comes a point where you hit the side wall, and you can't go any further. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling Klal Yisrael, you have to understand now there's going to be a new reality. That till now you can basically do whatever you want, keep the Sheva Mitzvahs, but do whatever you want. Now you're in the confines of Torah law. So you can walk around the Torah law, there's place to maneuver, right? You can be machmir a bit more, sometimes you can be makel, there's place to maneuver, but there comes a point where that's the perimeter of the Torah living, you can't go any further. If you go out of this perimeter, Shom take for Aschem. Now the Neshama is going to die. If it leaves this confine, Shom take for Aschem. It's not like before you can go wherever you want. Now there's parameters, and you've got to stay in those parameters. It's a new mitzvah. It's a new way of living. You have to understand that. And if not, Shom take for Aschem. If you go out now, then the Neshama can't live without it. It will die. So this fits in very beautifully. So it wasn't coercion. Hashem was explaining to them, Mamash, on the morning of Matan Torah, you have to understand now the new reality of living. There's rules for everything. We are the only religion where there's, from the second you wake up to the second you go to sleep, there's something to do. A box to tick. I did this, I did that, I was careful here, I did that, I did that. And we are the only religion which makes a bracha after going to the toilet. Even that is not taken for granted. Quite amazing. It's quite amazing. I must have told you this story. I think I told it here once. There was a guy called Jonathan Faith, a very wealthy fellow, who was interviewed. He owned a chain store called Faith Shoes. He's a big supporter of Aish. And his financial man was a Galach. And this was on primetime television, BBC One. So they did this documentary about him. And they asked his right-hand man, they asked him, who's better off, you or Jonathan? This is a Galach with the dog collar, everything, unbelievable. And the camera homed in on his face to see what he would answer. And he said, Jonathan is luckier than me. He said, Jonathan has everything laid out for him. He knows what to do. He knows he can tick the boxes. I did this, I did that. He said, we have to make our own interpretation on everything. Love your neighbour like yourself. You've got to make it, what does that mean? But we know what it means. He said, Jonathan is luckier than I am. Unbelievable. Because he knows what to do. He's got parameters. He's got confines. I know somebody, I used to teach this boy, he became a Baal Teshuvah because he was mildly autistic. He was Aspergic. Well, a feature of Aspergic children is they like rules and regulations. They need very strong boundaries. And it was an amazing story. He became from, and today he lives in Eretz Yisrael. He's married with 2 kids. It was the discipline of the Torah, the parameters where he knew what he could and can't do, was what made him from. Quite amazing. Quite amazing. So that was the Kavalem Hakigigis. This is the new reality of living. Okay. Now, for Har Sinai Oshan Kuloi, the mountain was smoking. I never understood this. I always thought there was like a fire on top of the mountain. Again, maybe the central picture I drew as a kid, that's how I depicted it. He says, no, Oshan Kuloi, he said the whole mountain was on fire. The whole mountain was on fire. Now, what happens when you put bricks or whatever back into a blast furnace? So that, they crack. Yeah, he said the fire penetrates the material, and the whole thing catches fire. That's what happens. So he says, "V'hasina Oshan Kuloi mipnei asher yorad olav Hashem ba'esh." Hashem came down, kiviyachol in a fire. Well, it's not Vayal Ashon Ke'esh Kivshon. That's the mashal the Torah gives. Like you in a furnace, you put stuff in it to burn, the whole thing catches fire. Vayechra Kol HaHamah. He says from the stones of the mountain were rattling because they were on fire. The fire penetrated the whole mountain.
I thought Moshe and Aaron were higher up.
That's a chiddush. Now it makes a chiddush now, yeah? Why So why is so he says he asked that kasha, I think. He asked that kasha. He says that a path was like left, is like an area was left for them to, because the Kohanim also apparently were on the mountain a little bit. So he said that's what he says. The words are, he asked this kasha. Yeah, that's right. So he said the whole mountain was smoking. He said because the fire penetrated it. He said then it stresses Hashem came down Barosh Shahar. He said it left an area for them to be on it. That's what it sort of stresses. The fire was Barosh Shahar. He said, but the Oshon was coming out of the whole mountain. It was coming out of the whole mountain. The mountain Oshan Kula. Hashem Ba'esh was Barosh Shahar. So he said that enabled them they could still go on it. That's how he answers it. Now, the Medrash says a Dava Nifla. Why was there so much fire and noise and atmosphere at Matan Torah? So number one, you'll never forget it. That's a good answer. I couldn't believe this Medrash. I saw this Medrash. I was so happy when I saw this Medrash. Because that's how you're supposed to learn Torah. It's got to be fire. It's got to be noise. It's got to be passion. It's got to be screaming and shouting. You don't know what you're talking about. It's an amazing thing, yeah? You can scream and shout your chavrusa and you're the closest of friends. It's the most amazing thing. Try and do that in business. Yeah? Scream and shout at your partner. Yeah? Don't know how long the partnership will last. Yeah? But in Torah, it's an amazing thing. You can scream and shout. You even get a problem with this. You live with your dad, you've got to be careful what you say. Because you get so passionate about it. Right? It says that the Torah is fire. It's mama's fire. We're handling with a ruchnic stick of fire. And fire changes things. It alters things. It changes the shape. It changes the format. It improves it. You can cook with fire. You make steel with fire. Everything you do with fire. The Torah changes a person, but it's got to be fire. It's got to be absolutely fire. The passion of learning, you can't learn like an Englisher. I have to admit, right? You can't learn like a quiet Englisher. Sit there, gently all that. You can't be like that. It's got to, the Torah was given the age, it's got to be fire. Now, where did I get the idea from? It was a bracha. It says, Mi yaminoi, eish, dos, lomoi. Right? So Rashi says, Mi yaminoi, right hand, that's why you hold the Torah in your right hand. Eish, dos, a law of fire, and a law from the fire, lomoi was given to them. Now, let me tell you something. The hardest thing to teach in school, especially, perhaps not so much in I don't know, in Chadarim or whatever, where they're less exposed to the outside world, but once you get to a high school, the hardest subject in college to teach is Gemara. Most people say Gemara was very boring. Until they got to Yeshiva a little bit, they started to enjoy it a little bit. But what is it? What's lacking if Gemara lesson was boring? It wasn't the subject matter, it was the teacher. It was the teacher. If you're passionate about it, if you bring the Gemara to life and you get the boys swept up in it, every boy will like it. Every boy wants fun and he wants to enjoy himself. It can be done, but only if it's Aish. There's got to be a passion in it. I once did it with a class. I said to them, right, I said the next 2 words, I said, you're never ever going to forget them. The next 2 words in the Gemara were Lo Salka Daitach. So there were 6 boys in the class, 5 boys in the class. This was 10 years ago nearly. They've never forgotten it. So I screamed, Lo Salka Daitach. They all jumped out of their skin. But for years later, they used to remind me, Rebbe, Lo Salka Daitach. Rebbe, Lo Salka Daitach. Right? What's the next word? Heshi, after Mimina Eishas Lamai, Torah, Sivalon Moshe, Merosh Kiles Yaakov. Rashi says, Al Chaznua, Torah Sivalon Moshe, it's Al Chaznua V'lo Nazvan. If you want Torah to go over be Yerusha, it's got to be Eish Das Lama. It's got to be with fire. If you're passionate about it, if your kids see you learning, that's why it's very important to learn at home. By the way, when you got little kids, at least they've got to see you learning at home. There's a story with the Briskerov. Somebody asked the Briskerov, he's got up to an hour a day. Should he learn with his son, or should he hire a Rebbe for his son and learn with the Chavrusa? So the Briskerov said to him, you should hire a Rebbe for your son, and you have a Chavrusa at home. So he said, why? He said, because if your son only sees you learning with him, he will think that's it. You only have to learn when you learn with your child. But if you hire a Rebbe for him and he sees you learning, he then understands there's a mitzvah person has to learn, not just to teach your child. But it's got to be passionate. I'm telling you now, you do it. Try the Shabbos table. A Geschmacker story with a Geschmacker lesson. Keep your kids riveted to their seats with a story. I used to use David and Goliath. I used to really get them wound up, I used to build it up and stories like that. But that's the point. If it's a Torah fire, Torah passion, your kids will automatically latch onto it because everybody wants it. Everybody wants Lebedik Kat. Everybody wants Chius. Everybody wants it. So you can't be. The rule of thumb is Zainisch in English. Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, because that is the whole nature of Torah. And I'll tell you another thing as well. Occurred to me this year.
What?
Why is it so important? The Torah talks about teaching your Talmidim. It says v'shinantum levonecha. So it's your children. It's literal. The mitzvah on the father teaches his child. It's chiv deraisa. But Chazal say elu haTalmidim. So why does the Torah describe Talmidim as children? The answer is, under normal circumstances, you love your child. So when you teach, even your Talmidim, you've got to love them like your own children. Otherwise, it's not going to go. There's something lacking there, fundamental. So I thought to myself, why is it so important to teach Ba'ava? You've got to love your Talmidim like you love your kids. It dawned on me one morning during Shacharis. Before Shema, we talk about the Hashem giving us the Torah. What do we say? Oyev Amo Yisrael and Aboich Yisrael Ba'ava. When Hashem gave us the Torah, He gave Ba'ava. That is how the Torah is given. The whole surah of Matan Torah was Hashem gave us the Torah Ba'ava. He taught us the Torah Ba'ava. So it's not a bonus. It's not a bonus Ava Chayla. That is the surah of the Chetzah. That is the shape of the Torah. It's given over to each generation to forward it to the next generation till the end of days. The way Hashem gave it to us. And He gave it to us, Aboich Amo Yisrael Ba'ava. So therefore, the Torah, to bring out that point, when He describes the mitzvah teaching, it says V'shinantum levonecha, because when you teach your child, the Ava's there, because that is the tzura, that is the nature of Matan Torah. All right, Be'ez tomorrow we'll carry on. Just to finish off one little halacha of the Avas Chesed. He says something very beautiful here. He said, just like with stocker, the way you give it should be with a smile and with a pleasantness. The way you give stocker, same as if you're doing a chesed, you're lending somebody an item, or you're lending him money, it's got to be done in the same way. It's got to be done in the same way, with a pleasantness, not that he's bothering you, not that he's taking your time, and offering you comforting words or advice. If he's bothering for a business venture, he needs help in his business, encourage him. He says, he brings a Rashi. Rashi says, Esa'ani imach, the poor man with you. Rashi brings a chazal. Rashi says, when you're going to borrow that money, or so he's come to lend you to borrow money off you, imagine you're the oni. How would you want him to react to you? You want him to be nice and friendly about it and helpful. So do the same thing when you lend him. I'll tell you a murder story. Sholom he said over that he got 3 years support from his father-in-law. 3 years support after the chasna, he got free meals, he got meals, and then after 3 years he had to make his own way in life.
Saved all that dosh and invested it.
Right? So he said he needed to borrow some money for Shabbos. I think it was like 2 shillings, 3 shillings in those days. It wasn't a lot of money. So he went to the Gemach and he filled out a form and he got 2 Arevim. It was only a small amount of money. He said the Bala Gemach, he remembered, he said he was an American living in Yerushalayim. He said the guy had a stone face, no friendliness at all. Looked at it, showed the piece of paper to the co-gabber, said no, the Arevim are no good. The Arevim are no good, and just gave him back the piece of paper. He said as he walked out, he thought to himself, if this guy wants to do chesed, he ought to join the Chevra Kedisha. Because there he's not going to upset people the way his face is. He said, if you're running a Gemach lending money, you're dealing with live people with feelings. And he should be, that's how he should do it, with a smile, say, look, I'd love to lend you, I really want to help you, but these are Arevim, we've had experience with them, we can't rely on them. And he explained that people are understanding. It's disappointing, but they're understanding. He said he was so cold and so stony-faced. He said, he said, that's what he thought. He thought, if this guy wants to do chesed, go and do it with the mason. Maybe the mason wouldn't like it, but Akabon. So I had a similar story. I borrowed, about 30 years ago, 500 quid off somebody. I had a gemach. And the guy was really, he meant to be professional, and I knew the guy from years earlier. He was a strict old fella. He was brought to okay, I won't say where he came from or anything, he was a strict old guy. But I came across this feeling again. You know, it was, can't you, with a bit of a smile, you know, and again, it was the same story. He wasn't happy with our Raven. Now, it was only 500 quid, and it was actually just because my father didn't have the money on him, so it was only for a month, or 2 months. It wasn't a long time either, maybe 3 months, maybe. I thought, wow, what's he being such a chazzer for? Anyway, I think he must have felt it as well a bit back, because he was a good friend of my father's. Well, next time when I came back to sort it out again, I sort of had a savings account which took a month to get the money out, so I got a form from there, and it's basically a swap of checks, really. He must have felt a bit bad. He said to me, it's only because I'm strict with it that I'm still in business. He said other gemachim in town who are easygoing, they didn't get their money back.
Yeah, 500 quid from each guy.
Well, yeah, okay, but still to this day. So I understood him, okay, but till to this day I can still feel it, how I felt. And I often thought to myself, what would happen if I make it financially and he comes round for a cause of his? What would I say to him?
Sure, here's the money.
Well, that's how we should, yeah. So eventually, I think now I would. Now 28 years later, I think I would. But I often thought to myself, what would I say to him? You know what I thought I was going to do? I'm going to teach him a lesson. I thought I'd be a real hazard to him, and when he says, why are you being like this? I say, well, now you know what it feels like. Whether it's up to me to mechanic him or not, I don't think so. But there was something there that if you're going to do a chesed with the public, with human beings, it's got to be with a smile. Our chesed says in black and white. And if not, you're not doing a chesed, even if you do the chesed. But with stocker, if you upset the guy's feelings, it doesn't matter how much money you give him, you don't get any reward. And you're over. So it could be the same thing with chesed. If the guy does a chesed with a stern face, says, oh, here's my hedge cutters, oh, you pain, you know, you bother, yeah, it's cold out there, it's raining, you know, I've got to go to the shed. If you show them that displeasure, you probably lose the mitzvah, so don't even bother doing it. You know, you're not even doing a chesed, so, akaponis. So he says that, Chavod Chaim says, it must be given in the same way as stocker, black and white halacha, with a pleasantness, and with a simcha that you can help him, or a wonderful opportunity, and then you're zoich in his mitzvah. Listen to these words he says, although you're allowed to give stocker, the Gemara says that almanot you become rich, or that so-and-so should get better, you're allowed to give stocker with a condition attached. Listen to these words. He says, the Yosef Tov, it would be better though, it would be better if you just do the mitzvah because Hashem commanded you to do it. Oh, it's gone again. Right? He says, listen to these words. Ki oz, if you do a mitzvah with such sincerity, purely because Hashem told you to do it, ki oz ayidei koyach kedushas ha-mitzvah shenasis al oifen ha-yoseh na'ala, by doing a mitzvah in the best possible way, nis'oire lemala ayidei zeh midas ha-chesed ma'od ma'od. You activate in Shomayim the midah of chesed incredibly, v'nimshech midas ha-chesed, you're going to bring down chesed from Shomayim, Al kol mitzias habriya, on the entire universe. For one ma'aseh chesed done sincerely because the Schwalbe commanded you to do this chesed. Isn't that incredible words? So next time you lend somebody a pen, next time you lend somebody I don't know, scrap of paper to scribble something on, you give it to him. Yeah. Think what you're doing. Yeah. To us it looks very insignificant, but you do it because the Schwalbe commanded us to do chesed with each other. You're bringing down chesed on the whole bria, and boy oh boy, do we need a lot of chesed today. Okay guys, better show tomorrow night. We'll carry on.
Got a job, I've got a job in between. You're snoring really loud.
Really?